The witness's tale, as told to Alex Preston. Home. You remember little of the time before you came to your country's capital city. You were born in the East, where a decades-long war still simmered. All you could recall of that place was sunlight, warmth, cooking smells on heavy evening air. You were 5 when your father moved your family to the city. In the capital, you lived by the sea in a row of ancient colonial houses that were once white but had now taken on the colour of the sand. You spent all the time you weren't at school in the dusty streets between the rows of houses, playing the local sport, a complicated game with paddles and a ball and much shouting. You grew as a tree might grow, in sudden, surprising bursts, followed by years in which you hardly seemed to change at all. Let's call you V. This was the start of things, V. You were sitting at home, age 16, studying or attempting to study. Your father was at his barber shop in the city centre, a city that was twitchy on edge after a series of bomb blasts. At 4:30, your father came home unexpectedly with news that your cousin, R, who worked as your father's assistant, had been arrested. He was a suspect, your father said, in one of the bomb blasts. They believed that your cousin was a member of the insurgency. You knew that he was innocent. A more innocent, studious boy could not be imagined. After a few days, your father finally managed to get your cousin's case brought before a magistrate. The magistrate said that since there wasn't any evidence against him, the police could only hold him for 14 days. During those days, R was tortured by the police. This was very common where you come from. Then your mother gave Jules to the police officer in charge of the station where he was being held, and your cousin was released. This too was common. You should say here that your father's older brother was once a member of the insurgency. This was long ago, and the war was another war, nobler and less complex than the war now. The uncle had fled abroad, and R was not his son, but rather the son of your father's sister. Still, a few days later, the police arrived at your house again, although this time with them were 4 army officers. They asked very politely where your father was. He's upstairs, you said, but your father had heard the cars outside and was descending the staircase already. They took you away, you and your father and your poor broken cousin, all with your hands bound and black hoods over your heads. You weren't especially worried even then. Everything had the tentative air of a dream, and anyway, you were in the capital city. People disappeared in the East, where you were born, but not here, not in the shadow of the newly built World Financial Centre, under the benevolent gaze of UN inspectors. You were taken to a police station and placed in 3 separate rooms. They were surprised at how well you spoke their language, for although you used the language of the East with your family, you had learnt the tongue of the capital city and spoke it with the conviction of a native of that place. They told you that your father had confessed, that he confessed to them he was a long-time member of the insurgency. Your cousin too, they said, was a leader of the terrorist youth wing. You laughed. I know nothing of this, you said. Then they began to beat you. I don't know anything, you said, as they went in first with their fists, then with a black rod, which they used upon your ribs, your shins, your ankles, employing more and more force until things started to break and burst. I don't know anything, you insisted. You still have hard places that should be soft because of those beatings. Much later, a police officer came in, this one kinder, gentler than the others. I want my mother, you said. He allowed you to telephone her, told you which station you were being held in so you could say it down the line to your mother. She went to your local MP, a good man. The MP sent his private secretary to the jail. She couldn't get your father and brother out, but you were released because you were a schoolboy. Then the MP told your mother the name of a certain person, the friend of a judge, to whom money could be brought, who would pass on supplications. Your mother sold the last of her jewellery, and the next day your father and cousin were home. Everything had changed, though. It was a close community you lived in, and news travelled fast up and down those dust-blown streets. After your arrest, your neighbours looked at you as if you were terrorists. More often, they did not look at you at all. You sat at home and listened to the shouts of the boys playing the local sport, the way their voices would rise in vexation or joy, and you wished that you could be out there with them, running through the dust and sea-tang air. 3 days later, and the final blow fell. Your brother, was 12. He was a tubby, bespectacled kid, always hanging around your mother, always with his finger in something in the kitchen. He was smart too, as near the top of his class as you were near the bottom of yours. The army had heard that you'd been released and came to your school looking for you. You were off that day, sick. The principal of the school tried to put up a fight. He told the army officers that they weren't allowed to come into the school. They just laughed at him. They said that he was hiding insurgents. The principal called you over the school's intercom. When you didn't come, he told them that you had a younger brother, and he's called M. The army officers left no word about where they had taken M. The principal called your father, and you went down to the school with him. You and your father visited all of the police stations of the capital city, but none of them was holding him. They told you that the army had taken him, not the police. You needed to apply to go to army headquarters. You and your father tried to get written permission, but were repeatedly refused. M was never seen again, not by you or your father or by your mother, who loved him very much. Departure. Your father sent you to live with an aunt up in the mountains where the air was fresh and green, flowers twining around the buildings and terraces stepping down the hillside. You stayed there for 3 months, and then your father sent for you. Life once again took on a dreamlike aspect, a feeling of inevitability. Your father explained very little, but the day after your return to the city, he took you to sit your English language exams. You could hardly speak a word. It was your least favourite subject at school, but you sat down, filled in the question sheet willy-nilly, and handed it in. Later, your father would tell you that he'd had a customer in the barber shop, a white man. He'd explained everything to this man, about the police and the army, about the beatings, about M. The man and his wife would help to get you out of the country, to find you asylum in the UK. The man's wife met you after the exam. She was very kind, very softly spoken. She told you that you would receive a high grade in your exam, that she'd transfer money to your father's bank account, that you would leave to start a new life in England. The airport, the plane, your father hurrying you along, disguising emotions with bustle. You'd said goodnight to your mother the night before, and then, before you knew it, you were rising, turning, a long bank which afforded you a last look at the sunset city below. A futile attempt to pick out your house somewhere along the dimly glowing shoreline. Then you were gone, up and up, through clouds and into the vastness of the air. Abroad. You are met by a friend of your father's at Heathrow. They haven't seen each other in a decade or more, but the man is kindly and cheerful, takes your bag and laughs when you marvel at his sat-nav. He drives you to Leicester. The roads are wide and endless and grey. You meet his wife. You settle into life there. Once a week you take the National Express coach to London. The £300 your father gave you spends itself with terrifying speed. In London you go to a college in Lewisham that claims to offer classes in English and business studies, computer technology and marketing. It's entirely chaotic. You see that immediately. The staff lounge outside smoking or loll about with their feet on their desks. If you pay your fees, you get a certificate. It's a con, and you want no part of it. Here begins a part of your story where you seem to lose all agency, V. Others use you, and you appear easily used. Your father's friend seems suddenly exasperated by your presence. He drives you to a large house in Harlesden, where there is a woman from your country who offers you a bed. It's a small and sad little room, the smell of dampness, stains on the walls. Your father's friend says he's going to buy you a new mattress and duvet. He never comes back. You go to a payphone and call his mobile again and again. You leave messages until your coins run out. The lady from your country says you can stay for a week or two at the most. Soon, it is your 18th birthday, and you spend it in the sad little room on your own. You have almost none of your father's money left. You find a job at Sand Valley Restaurant, a place run by people from your own country. They say they can't employ you legally, but you can work as an illegal. They'll pay you £1.50 an hour. Your job is cleaning 6 p.m, 6 a.m. You do 2 weeks, non-stop, 12 hours each night, sleeping during the day. When you ask for your wages, the manager says that the first week was your training period, unpaid. So for 2 weeks' work, you are given just over £100. You're furious. You say to yourself that you must find another job, but everywhere you go on your long, hopeless daytime wanderings, the people say they can't employ illegals. Then, one evening, the manager of Sand Valley, where you're still grudgingly working, tells you that there are 4 men from the east of your country there. You go and sit with them, and it is such a pleasure to pour out your story, to chew over those words that are like memories in your mouth. You tell them everything, and the 3 men nod and hum and shake their heads and tell you that your story is sad and familiar. You should be in France, they say, where asylum seekers are looked after so well, or Germany, where you would be given money by the state, your own apartment, training for a job. One of the men, short with a scraggy moustache, says that he runs an agency that helps people escape the UK, which is a cruel, cold and unwelcoming place, to find shelter on the continent. Here you risk deportation, the agent claims. Flights are leaving Heathrow every day, taking people back to our country, one-way ticket. You go home, collect your belongings, say goodbye to the woman, who is surprisingly sad that you're leaving, and clutches your hand as you go. You stay with the agent, who lives in a large house in Cricklewood, all plasma televisions and glass coffee tables, and beds with thick duvets. His wife is pregnant and cooks you dinner, a traditional dish of the East. You sleep better that night than you have since coming to England, knowing that you will soon be in safer, more welcoming hands. The next night, the other men from the restaurant come to dinner. They ask to see your passport, try to persuade you to change it for a false one. You refuse. Later, the agent asks you to let him have your passport so that he can obtain the visa required to enter France. This time, you let him take the passport. Early one morning, you and the agent set off in his car. It is dark, and the dashboard glows blue and red. He takes you to a McDonald's and buys you whatever you want. Finally, you arrive at Folkestone, ready to board the Channel. The English customs officials wave you through. Then you come to French passport control. The agent holds up his passport and yours, smiles thinly. The French officer looks at them, looks again. He asks the agent to pull the car into a parking bay. They take you to separate rooms. It's only later that you learn that the agent has shown them a false passport. Was that your passport he showed us? The official asks, his accent difficult for you to understand. Yes, you say. Yes, it was. Because you don't know. And it seems hard to believe, but this is one of the defining moments of your life. A mistake that will haunt the days, months, and years to come. They arrest you both and put you in a room together. Listen, the agent says to you. I did something bad. I swapped the passports. I'm sorry, I need yours for someone else, someone in a desperate situation. Please don't tell the police. I have a baby coming, and they'll lock me away. If you say it was your passport and that you're only 18, they'll put you in jail for a week, 10 days maximum. Please, V. Haven't I been kind to you? Please do this for me. I know so many police officers. I'll pay them to release you. And, V, you do it. Because you're good and you're innocent. The customs officers and policemen who interview you seem at first bemused, then angry with you. Finally, one, an older man, comes in and says, Did you try to come into France under false documentation? And you say, yes, I did. You go before a judge in Brighton who gives you a sentence of 1 year with automatic deportation. You're sent to Elmley Prison out on the marshes, where you feel life falling away from you, everything sinking into the cold, wet earth. Then you meet an interpreter, E, who is kind to you. You tell her the truth about the agent and the passports and the terrible mistake, and she shakes her head sadly and tells you that since you've admitted your guilt, there's nothing you can do. After 2 weeks at Elmley, they transfer you to Rochester Young Offenders Institute. You've been scared, have heard dark stories of racism and bullying, but it's a fine place. You make friends with the other boys who are kind to you, fascinated by your history, your tales of your country, don't seem to notice that you are the only one amongst them with dark skin. You garden, you study, you read books about Lenin and Gandhi, books that were banned in your country lest they foment the spirit of a revolution amongst the people. The police officers come to see you again. They tell you that the agent is actually a people smuggler, that he has been raping women, trafficking them for sex, that he runs people from England to France, then picks up people in France whom he smuggles to England. They say that if you help them, it will be good for your appeal. Will you be a witness? You say, of course you will. Now a string of appeals, 9 detention centres in 2 years, each as faceless and labyrinthine as the last. Cornbrook is perhaps the worst. If you take a shower, your room floods. You complain about it and they tell you to put up with it or you'll get a red mark on your file. Prison was better than this. You listen to all the stories of the people there because you've stopped telling your own story so freely. There are detainees from Sudan, from Congo, from Nigeria. People who had lost their children and were half mad with grief. Young people who'd seen their parents die before them. You lie in bed at night and you hear sighs and muffled sobs. You imagine their stories roaming the corridors of that place. You've never been anywhere so sad. More setbacks, more trouble. You've a cast island asylum case, you're told, but you're a criminal and criminals are a harm to the public. You'll be deported, there's no question. Then you receive a letter from legal aid saying that they cannot continue to support your case. Again, you feel life slipping away from you. You try to imagine yourself back in your homeland, and you find that your appetite, your energy, your ability to get to sleep at night, all these have deserted you. E. The interpreter hears that you've lost legal aid. She comes to see you. I've just qualified as a lawyer, she says. You can be my first case. She's been speaking about you to her husband, a police officer. Her husband believes your story. He's a fool, is V, but he's innocent. You're granted bail, although you must keep a curfew, must wear an electronic tag around your leg. You move through a series of lonely government accommodation centres, then E finds you a place down south, near Portsmouth. The police come to see you again. The people smuggling gang will be tried at Maidstone Crown Court. You'll have to give evidence, they tell you. You can do it by video link, your face hidden. The traffickers won't see your face. But, due to some clerical or administrative error, you aren't hidden away, but must speak in front of the gang. The agent is right there, sitting forward and looking straight at you with murderous eyes. You speak to a girl just before you go into the courtroom. She'd been raped by the agent, and she thanks you for speaking out. Her words give you bravery, and so you tell the truth about the passport, about your time with the agent. They get 7 or 8 years each. As they walk out, they shout in the language of your home that they will find you and kill you, that wherever you go in the world, they will hunt you down and kill you like a dog. Now you live in limbo, negotiating the warrens and blind alleys of bureaucracy. You are 23, 25, 27. Appeals and counter-appeals have been heard and rejected. Appeals to the Home Office, to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. You are passed from one court to the next. You are offered hope, and then this hope is snatched away. Years have passed, and soon the smugglers will be free. The police thank you, and even the Home Office write you a letter of gratitude, apparently unaware that they are seeking to deport you. They tell you that they will protect you. But you know that the smugglers have links in your home country. They will either get you here or there, you think. You wake scared in the mornings. You speak only to a handful of friends. You try not to speak too much. You have started to look behind you when you're walking. Your life is passing, V. You realise this, and eventually one appeal will be the final appeal, and a decision will be made. And at least that will be some kind of an ending.